Small, mid-size or large companies, which one is the right fit for your career? Each come with their own unique set of opportunities and challenges. If you make the wrong choice and stay in one of these companies too long, you could be holding yourself back from career growth and impacting your career over time. In this video, I'm going to break down the pros and cons of each of these types of companies, sharing insider tips to help you navigate your career like a pro. So let's make sure you're on the right track for success. And why should you listen to me and take my advice on this? Well, I've been working for around 20 years now, and I've been in your shoes. I've worked through small family-run businesses, mid-sized companies, and large global corporations. And I'm currently leading an executive manager role at one of the world's largest investment banks. I know firsthand the opportunities and challenges that each of these environments can present to you and how you can help use these to help further your career. So this is an opportunity for me to share my unique insights and help guide you on the pros and cons of working in a small, mid-sized and large company and help it work for you. So let's get straight into it. So let's start with small companies. So I used to work in a small family-run boutique wealth management firm, and like many small companies, when you go into a role, you are wearing multiple hats. They may hire you in for one particular job role, but because these companies are quite small, you end up doing the job of 2 to 3 individuals. And this is great early on in your career where you want to really learn as much as possible and get involved in as much as possible. Quite often in a small company, you're given responsibility a lot early on, and you're actually exposed to a lot of risk early on as well. So you'll be doing things that maybe more senior people do in larger corporations. But at an early stage of your career, small companies give you that great exposure and visibility to doing multiple things and building a broad skill set. What's also great about small companies is that you have close-knit teams, or they almost get this sense or feeling that they're families, or they feel like families, which I don't agree with the term families, but effectively what you have is a close-knit group of individuals who know how to work well together. And that is really good for you to help build your own relationships and your own network and really grow and feel valued in a small company as well. Small companies also mean smaller hierarchies, which means decisions can be made quicker, but also it's more visible. You are more visible to the top of the chain versus, the entry level of the chain. So being in a company where you are more visible, doing more work, there are a lot of positives here to working in a small company and getting that skills that you need, the visibility you need, building relationships as well. Small companies tend to be less rigid as well. So if you want to bring in a new idea or change a process, you have more flexibility to do this. And that is good for you if you want to be in more of a role where you're being a change maker, you're entrepreneurial, you're in innovation. Sometimes smaller companies help you explore that side of your skill set, see if it's for you as well. But likewise, with all of these pros, there comes some cons as well. So what I've mentioned here, wearing multiple hats, although you have a broad skill set and you're going to learn a lot, you'll be doing a lot of work. The pressure may be high, you may be working longer hours, but effectively it's going to be quite a lot of stress and work for you to get these large workloads done because you are effectively doing the job of a few people. And also I've mentioned it being smaller structures, less sort of hierarchy, less structure in terms of how it's run. That can also negatively impact your growth because there isn't a structured career path. And that's something that you get in more of a mid-size or a large organization where you have career tracks, you have programs that help you grow. You will not get that in smaller organizations, and a lot of it will be down to your own personal impact and the relationships that you have built. So this can work against you as well if you're looking for structure and you're not getting that and you're not getting the opportunities to grow further. And more often than not, and in my case as well, it comes down to budget restraints. When you're working in a role like I do where it's innovation, it's forward thinking, you're going to need a budget set aside for that. You're going to need investment in the years to come to explore new ideas. And most often than not in the smaller organizations, unless that that is the sole purpose of the company, you will not see that they'll be carved out a large budget for that. So you get budgetary restraints that hold you back, which means you are just ticking on the BAU or business as usual work and just making sure all the cogs are spinning and not really pushing the company forward. So having just discussed small companies, I think they're quite good for you earlier on in your career. There are times where you can work in a smaller company at a later stage, and I did exactly that as well. I moved into a small company, I would say, in the 20 years I've been working, more towards the second half of my career. And the reason I did that is because I was struggling to get the seniority I wanted. I wanted to own and become more senior in a role that I was in, and I was finding that difficult to do in a large organization, difficult to make that jump. But then doing that in a smaller company made me available to effectively become the head of a small team, and that helped me to explore skills in the management space, but also have that accountability, that ownership, where I was owning a lot of work and also making a lot of decisions, being very visible, and I was getting that in a smaller company. And more often than not, smaller companies like to hire people who have got the background in larger structure, larger organizations, dealing with a lot more pressure, dealing with larger budgets. And that was the draw for being hired into a smaller company for me. But then at the same time, building my skills and being able to then have that smaller company grow my management skills was great opportunity for me as well. So it's not just about starting earlier on and getting a broad skill set. Sometimes you can end up being in a senior position in a smaller firm as well, using all your knowledge that you've built from larger corporations. One of the challenges of working in a small corporation as well, small company, is that you do not have, unless it is a unicorn startup or it's something that is trendy or in a trendy skill set like generative AI or some fintech small company, it's hard to then move into a larger organization, because a lot of the larger organizations unfortunately work on prestige, and that means it's the brand, it's the company you've worked for. And more often than not, I faced quite a few times actually my move back into a large company from working in a small boutique firm was quite difficult for me. It took over a year, that move, and really because a lot of the times I was getting these interviews at large companies, large brands, and they would just say to me, quite frankly, that you are a big fish in a small pond. And that phrase really triggered me, actually, thinking that, yeah, okay, I'm doing a big role in a small company, but I can do this in a large company. And it was more about perseverance and getting that shift towards working in a larger company. And that's what drove me to start looking at mid-sized companies. And I actually moved from a small company into a mid-size. And I spent a large time of my career in mid-size. Mid-sized companies give you the best of both worlds. You get the feel of small companies where there's that a little bit more flexibility around making change, but then equally you get the structure of a larger company in terms of programs for growth and things like that. So in a mid-sized company, there are quite a few pros. So not only do you get that, what I've just mentioned here, the balanced career path or the sort of structured career path where you can work as an engineer, product manager, or someone in a sales role, for example. You get that defined for you, but you also get a breadth of understanding the company. It's mid-sized now, it's in its growth stage or beyond. The company is a good enough size for you to network and start learning how to network effectively as well. Your work still feels really impactful in a mid-sized company because of the size of the company. You are predominantly more visible, but you're able to still make impact of what you're doing, and you can see the returns of what you're doing as well. In mid-sized companies as well, you still get an element of, well, more collaboration, I should say. There'll always be silos in organizations, that's just the nature of when you grow, but you'll experience a lot more collaboration than you would say in a large global corporate, which has got a lot of siloed activity, maybe repeat activity going on, duplicated effort. But in a mid-size, you'll find a nice balance between being able to collaborate effectively with people as opposed to being, duplicating effort in silos. You also find in mid-sized companies that you have access to more resources, or more resources are being brought in. And this could be everything from learning opportunities, technologies or tools that you want to use, or being able to sort of move forward and change some of the processes that you've got in your company. What you may find with a mid-sized company though, is that a lot of these mid-sized companies do not have that brand appeal. They do not have that sort of prestige, I think, that you're looking for if you want prestige on your career. In your sort of career history, a lot of mid-sized companies do not have that, and that's something that there are a few out there that you can balance the prestige with being mid-sized, but really you have to be mindful of that when you're taking an opportunity in a mid-sized company. If it is an unknown company that no one's heard of, no one you most likely will ever hear of, what is your aspiration for your career? That might be okay for you if you're getting the role and the opportunity you want and you can see yourself there for the next 5 years. But if you're thinking about the future and thinking, right, well, I want this to be a stepping stone role into a larger company, then you need to start planning for that. If you're taking a role in a company that's a bit more unknown, mid-size, but you think you're going to get the skills and the projects delivered that you need, you may take you a bit longer to get into a larger company, and it may take you a few more attempts than usual, say if you've already worked in a large organization. That they tend to like, and as I've mentioned, they like prestige and hiring from the same sorts of large corporations as themselves, unfortunately. But it is possible. I did it as well. I moved from mid-size into large again, which I've done in my current role. I went from a mid-size investment management fairly well-known institution in the UK now to a global investment bank, one of the biggest ones. And I did that just through trying to find these opportunities to move, and obviously finding the right one where my skills were more important than where I'd come from effectively. So you may lack those global opportunities in the mid-sized company, but also you may find that there are growing pains. So in mid-sized companies, there tend to be sometimes situations where there are mergers, acquisitions, or you may find that when they're scaling and building more functions into the organization, they're going to be growing pains, and those growing pains can be quite stifling at times. You may find that the processes become overly convoluted, or you may find increased bureaucracy. You may get more middle managers as they grow, and that really is a sign then to leave those mid-sized companies and look, either if you've preferred it, to go back down into a small size company where you have more control and it's a little bit I would say more entrepreneurial in its experience, or you take the leap and go into a bigger company. And we'll talk now about the sort of large companies and what you gain from that as well. So one of the things I've mentioned a few times now is that you get prestige in large companies. If you're in one of the large investment banks, one of the big four tech firms, or large consumer goods or pharmaceutical brands, these are all prestige companies which increase your marketability, meaning that you can pretty much get jobs across all of these luxury or prestige brands. But then you can also move into smaller companies using that prestige behind you as well. So the prestige is something that you can use to your advantage. So you've enhanced your resume effectively by working in these larger companies. Even if you only have a stint of 18 months in one of these large companies, it is quite impactful on your resume. What you'll also find is in a large company, you've got so many people. And with this, there is a large networking opportunity. A lot of these people have come from different backgrounds. They've come from different organizations. Some of them are even thought leaders in the industry, writing white papers, public speakers. These are all people that you can network with in a large organization, get to know them, increase your visibility as well. But that will help you in your next career move, because more often than not, you gravitate to places where people from your own companies have moved to, and they've built a network as well. So very important for you to build that network when you're in a large company. Large companies companies also give you quite structured benefits, and a lot of people like working in a large company because you get a great pension, you get share options as well, so it's great for investment, you get structured salaries, but you also get structured growth, so you're obviously regularly getting increases on a yearly basis, but then there's obviously opportunities and very structured and clear opportunities to go on training programs that will lead to promotion, and also getting sort of step changes in your role. In a large organization, you also have the opportunity to move sideways, so you can take internal moves, will keep you feeling fresh, like you're joining a new team, doing a new project, but there's also scope for you to explore your skills in different areas. So you've got a lot of options in a large company to move sideways or try your best to move up with structured programs. In a large company, it can be, if you've worked in smaller or mid-size, it can be quite intimidating and daunting sometimes to work with thousands of people from different countries, global nature, a lot of remote work, a lot of managing projects across time zones, and it can feel quite overwhelming when you're new to that sort of environment where there's thousands and thousands of people and you have to navigate getting your deliveries through. And it takes time to adjust to that and time to understand how to influence in that space, but it is also a great opportunity to do global work and have global impact. But one of the reasons I left a large company early on in my career, so if I talk about my own career now, I started off thinking that the best way in the world of work is to get one of these, I was doing a degree in computer science, and the best way to go forward for me 20 years ago was to get a graduate scheme placement in one of these large organizations. So for me, it was working in consumer goods at Procter & Gamble or at Citibank. I worked as well as an intern there as well. But really, it was trying to get these grad schemes in larger organizations. And I think that's really important. For me, I felt like prestige was important early on, and it was important for me because even if I couldn't hack it and I lasted only 18 months, I felt like I could then move on to getting hired in a smaller organization where I can then do a little bit more responsibility, have a team, do more work in that space, and end up going from large company and then downsizing to mid-size where I had more responsibility, more exposure. And then I thought at that point, I wanted to try and go back into a large company, but I was really hesitant to, because I knew about what my friends were experiencing with the politics and the bureaucracy around that as well, which we'll get into in a minute in terms of the cons of a large company, to feel like I could build my leadership skills. It was really important for me to feel like I could build my leadership skills, really grow them to a point that I could then go into a large company and say, well, I've led this, I've led entire teams, I've led big projects in small companies. And yes, it took some time to do that. And a lot of people knocked me back for saying, well, it's only in a small company, you've not done that in a large company. But that didn't deter me from wanting to keep going and getting into a large company again, having that leadership experience in a smaller company. And I did that. I went back into actually mid-size, thinking that large is becoming too much of a stretch. Went into a mid-sized company that had a good brand in the UK, and then moving from that again into a large company that I'm in now, in a large global investment bank. But this time I came in at a much more senior position, and I was able then to take the skills I've learned and get promoted now internally using the structure that I've just explained in large organizations where you have very tailored promotion processes. So there are pros and cons there, but the cons, I've just mentioned a few in the large company space. A lot of it comes down to politics, and what you'll find is that it really can be the roll of a dice in terms of where you're going to be in an organization. Am I going to be in a team that has a really toxic culture with a bad manager? Am I going to be in a supportive team? Is my part of in my case, is my part of the bank a really innovative and open and secure space, or is it not? Is it old school, traditional, and really archaic in its processes? And that really is quite a scary thing to think about when you go into a large organization. It can be very hit and miss, and that's something you have to be mindful of. But there are some things you can do around that. You could get into the large organization feel that around for a while and then move internally, which is very feasible, something you can do. You can keep applying to jobs internally, and that is not frowned upon because that is an active requirement actually within large corporations to have that mobility. So it's really something that they encourage as well. What you'll find is you'll feel, if you're not careful in building your strategic presence, and I have videos on that on this channel which you can look at, but if you don't build your strategic presence and your visibility, you may end up feeling just like a cog in a big machine and not really knowing what your impact is. And that's primarily down to you not being able to show your skills and network enough to feel that you're working on things that are visible, but then also it could be the nature of the remit of your role as well. So it's two sides there, but effectively you can end up getting into a space, a mind space, which is hard to get out of, where you feel like you're just a cog in a machine and you don't understand your impact. You'll also find immense politics. Now, to be good at and successful in a large company means that you must be good at managing politics. You must be good at firstly understanding where the influences are and detractors are, and I have a whole video on navigating office politics, but really it is the fundamental way to survive in a large organization. And it's not all bad and it's not all stressful, but having a political awareness is very key in a large organization. And if that's something you're just not ready for in your career and something that you think that you may need to take time to build, then it's better to be in a smaller or mid-sized company to start with until you grow that resilience you need to then tackle large-scale company politics. And it is, by product of a large company, harder to stand out in a large company unless you're working on a flagship product. You're working in a space that is, I would say, highly visible. It's hard for you to have that visibility. You need to carve that out for yourself by working on projects, even passion projects sometimes on the side of your day job, to try and get yourself visible, speaking in internal forums, putting yourself out there for networking events. It can be a lot of effort, but then there is a lot of reward in that effort as well. You will see rapid career growth. Your remuneration, your salary will be a lot higher than average salaries in smaller companies as well. So you'll get a lot of benefit there as well. But if you're not in that space in your career yet, or personally in your growth where you can't put that effort in, then it's time for you to think about, mid-sized, smaller companies and growing that skill set first before tackling larger companies. So to summarize, I think if you value hands-on experience and want to grow quickly, get lots of exposure to different things, then small companies are for you. If you're looking for balance and you want to know that you've got a steady career path, growth opportunities, but then equally you can explore new and innovative things, then the mid-sized companies for you, where there could be a stage in your career growth where you just want stability and you want to just understand how larger companies work, but also have that visibility, then a mid-sized company is the right choice for you in your career. But if you want the prestige, if you want to be able to work on global projects and you want to be able to shine on a larger scale, and you think you've got that ability to work the politics around it, then being in a large company has a lot of benefits as well. And there are the downsides, but you need to accept those and manage those constructively and make them work for you. But a large company will give you that prestige that you require, make you marketable across the industry, but also give you the large networking opportunities and the salary gains that you'd like to see as well. I hope this video has been a good exposure to you to the mid-sized, small and large companies, how I've used them to get to where I am now, but also think about where you are in your career and what your next move is, where you want to see yourself. Going into a smaller company is not always a bad thing. If you are in a large company, you can make that work for you. You can learn a lot more and get senior in that space and really feel that you're owning and you've built your leadership skills before moving back into larger companies as well to do that. So there are pros and cons. On this channel, I explore everything from career growth, how you can get the most out of your career, building skills also in technology, product management, engineering space, but also just being the best version of yourself at work and navigating some of the challenges that you can do there. So if that sounds great, then please check out the other videos on my channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.